Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ACUTEC's webinar in reference to ransomware. We're going to have a fairly light discussion today around ransomware. We're not going to go too technical. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. Don't worry about how silly you may think that question is. Today is really just trying to educate people on ways of getting ransomware, and in the case that it does happen, what we can do to protect you on the network. So on the call today is myself, Steve Marks. I'm the sales manager. I've also got Simon G.
Hello everyone.
And the marketing team who've put this together, Amy and Jess.
Hello. Hello.
Right, so 10 ways to get ransomware. As I say, some of these terms you may know, some of them may not, but we're going to try and keep it fairly simple. And just give you a few ideas or a few ways you can get that. So first of all, there's phishing attacks and what we call spear phishing attacks. So Simon, could you give us a bit of an explanation of what that is and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we do that, Steve, one thing that I just want to kind of jump on that you said. The whole purpose of this is to get everybody aware of what ransomware is. You know, there'll be a lot of people on this call that are technical. And I know there's probably some that aren't so technical. It's absolutely imperative that everyone knows about this. So this is why we're putting this message out. So some of you will have come across the term phishing and spear phishing. You know, we've all got emails. We're receiving emails all day long. Essentially what a phishing email is where there's a malicious executable file, really, that's in the content of that email.
Yeah, and I think that word executable file and malicious content is something you're probably going to hear quite a bit today, and this is in reference to all of them really. So phishing, as Simon said, it's an email, and they'll be phishing for you to click on a link, which will then install the executable file and put in ransomware on your device, your PC, which can then lead into the network. We've also got spear phishing.
Yeah, so this is where it's a little bit more specific. So phishing basically is just an email that's coming in. It's going to hit thousands of people. The content on there is not going to be that specific. Whereas with spear phishing, they've managed to obtain certain information about either you or your association, if you like. So it may be that someone is perturbing to be somebody that you work with. It may be that they've actually got the content and they know something about you, and they're trying to make it a bit more personal to you as much as anything.
I think we're seeing a large increase in what we call social engineering. So the managing director of ABC company could be actually on annual leave. He's put that, or she's put that, on their social media webpage. And then we can find that information out, and we can send an email to maybe the FD saying, "Can you make a payment?" And then, you know, and within that, then there's a link which will lead to an executable file again, and putting ransomware on your device. So a lot of this, what we're going to say today, is it's just about taking a couple of seconds to think before you click on something. Does it read right? Does it look right? Is it from somebody you know? You know, when we're all busy, we just click on links and we shouldn't do, so we just need to be a little bit careful with that type.
Yeah, I think to add to that, things that you should be doing, you know, check who the email is from, and just have that extra level of caution. You know, it's very easy that if it's Simon.G at ACUTEC, that a letter could be slightly different, and you overlook that or something like that. Is the content of the email really relevant to what you would typically receive? You know,
you know, are you going to get something from the accounts team with the accounts on if you don't work in the accounts team? You know, or are you going to get something from HR with the payroll on if you don't work in HR? You know, don't just open files because you've had that and you think it might be relevant, or you want to maybe be a little bit nosy. It's about being careful because you know, these attachments and web links can be very dangerous to the network. So a lot of these, as I say, the 10 do come across as very similar. So, but it's just really trying to show you how you can actually get them. So, web links is the next one. Now, web links, you could be on a very reputable website, and you might want to click on to go and have a look at something else on that website. Within that link is, you know, a spurious link, which then again installs some sort of executable file and causes a problem on the network. Again, a web link could be attached into an email, as in phishing emails and things as well. Downloads, I think over time, probably most people have tried to download a track, a music track, or some sort of film, and these tend to come in a zip folder, and they're not free for a reason. They're free for a reason. They tend to have some sort of file as well inside that zip folder. So again, just be careful if you're downloading something. If you find something on a website that's free, is it too good to be true?
I was going to say, if you're thinking there, oh, that's really good value, I've got to click on that, although is this too good to be true? Yeah, it probably is the reality. I know that's a very sweeping statement, but that's where we are at the moment, is the reality.
Yeah, okay. And going over to attachments, do you want to give a bit more of a detail of this?
But a really common way of where people are getting harm into their network, really, again, it's coming via an email, such as the phishing. It may be a web link, as we've talked about. It might contain an attachment. Again, look at what that attachment is. We've sort of touched on it a little bit, where if you've got a file from your accounts department, that's kind of account related and you're on accounts, then don't open it. It's probably, or check first. Take that extra minute or two to check it first. We're going to come on to how many problems can be caused by these. So just be a little bit careful what attachments are. Do they look what you would deem as the norm? And if not, go and check it out, or just don't open it.
Pick up the phone to the person that's maybe sent you an email or where that attachment's come from. It takes 2 seconds to do that check. However, to recover from a ransomware attack can take a long time. It can cost a lot of money and cause a lot of pain to your organisation or business. Adware, do you want to just go over to that?
Yeah, again, I will say that we've just taken this as a screenshot. There's not particularly anything that's necessarily wrong with this one, but we can see that we've got a Google website there. Don't worry, Google is pretty safe. However, there are other things that are on that page. If you look at the top there, where we've got that Go phone only from Singular. Again, we're not saying that this specific one is an issue, but this is the sort of thing that you can see. You go to a website, there's a sponsor on there if you like, or a link to another website, and it's very easy to kind of get, oh right, okay, I can get that Nokia 6030 for $29.99 or whatever. You go and click on it, and it's where the harm is. It's on that website that causes the problem.
We've got external devices. Now, we all like a freebie, and I don't know if you've been to a show recently and someone's given away a free USB stick or what have you. You think you can put your photos or
yeah, I got one last week. I
went
to an event, and there you go, you get a free USB stick.
And it's quite common, these devices quite commonly come and they will have viruses on them or some sort of link or executable file that would install something on your network. So again, just be cautious before you open any files that are on these things. Please do a scan. Please make sure that they've been checked. Public domains. We all stop in hotels. We all go to coffee shops. Simon, do you want to give a bit of an explanation how this was a problem?
You kind of started off there. I don't think there's too much more to be said, but yeah, we'll go into the bar and there's free Wi-Fi there, and straight on the phone as we do, and suddenly, or on my laptop, whatever it may be, and there's a free Wi-Fi. I'll join it. It's very easy to do. What we're saying is not necessarily don't do it, but be very careful about what you are doing on it. Ideally, you wouldn't go on it, I'll be honest, but there's a real life out there. So we also understand that. Don't go onto your banking website, for example. Don't leave your link open, and make sure you're not sharing.
Yeah, just make sure your device is locked down as tight as it can be on public networks. Because what you have got to remember is that it may only be your device at that time that's going to get infected, but as soon as that hits the network or your business network, then that can infect the whole system and bring the whole thing down. Social media, I don't think there are many people probably on the call that don't use social media these days, but again, it's becoming more and more common. There are third-party add-ons, maybe games that you maybe want to use on social media. Again, it's just taking those extra steps. What are you clicking? What is it installing? What are you accepting when you click something? There are very strong possibilities that they will have files in them that will install executable files, and again will put ransomware on your device. And just first, just step back very quickly. One thing we haven't actually said here is what actually ransomware is, and I hope everybody does understand what that is. But the general purpose of ransomware is to actually install or encrypt your files on your device or on your network. Now, when they encrypt it, it means you can't access them, you can't open them, you can't read them, you can't send, save, or do anything with them. And the only way of unencrypting those generally is to pay what they say the ransomware, or as we'll go into a little bit later, maybe to recover from a backup. But you need to make sure you have got a good backup. And okay, it has been in the public domain recently with people like the NHS.
With 10 minutes, we've only just mentioned it. I think that's quite good.
It's not just those people that are getting caught out. It is small businesses, because the small businesses are more likely to pay, and they're not likely to have very good backups or recovery methods. So they are going to pay the few £100 or the few £1,000 to get their data back.
I think it's just worth kind of jumping on that as well. Is obviously the big factor that happened on Friday last week. Obviously, because it was such a big organisation, it made a massive news story, and it caused a lot of pain. Don't get me wrong, and don't think that small organisations aren't getting hit by this sort of thing all the time. It just doesn't make the news.
Yeah. And then the last one we've got on here. Oh no, so we've got two. Sorry, we've got retail is the next one, and I'm going to pass this one over to Amy, because Amy's had a sort of similar experience of what can happen. So I'll pass this over to Amy.
Yeah, in this case, I didn't actually have any ransomware installed, but it could have happened. So what happened last year was I was selling an iPad on eBay. I put it on a buy it now, and it was bought literally within a minute of me putting it on. And then I received an email from the person who'd bought it saying could they see more photos, because they wanted to send it as a birthday present to someone in Nigeria, which immediately I'm sitting there thinking this is a bit dodgy. I then received an email from PayPal saying that they'd paid the money, at which point I'm sitting there thinking, well, if they've paid, But then I checked my PayPal account and there was no money in the account. And then when I looked at the email, it was actually a spoof email. It was not from PayPal at all. They'd sent a phishing email pretending that they'd paid to get me to send the iPad for free. So that's one case of where that can happen. But they could have also put ransomware on that email as well.
Yeah, I think it's just any emails that you're receiving, just be careful again, because we have that spurious link in it. And then we just go over to Bluetooth. Now, this is one that's quite commonly overlooked, but all our mobile devices, our tablets, our laptops all have Bluetooth on them. If you're leaving that open, or leaving, people within a 10-15 metre radius, they can drop files on that device. Now, it may drop something on your mobile phone, then you connect your mobile phone to your Wi-Fi at home or your Wi-Fi in the office, and that then can infect the network. It's very simple things we just forget that you take for granted every single day. Social media you use every day, Bluetooth you use every day, but all of these are routes and ways into your network. So I suppose just going over next really to the consequences. As we said before, it's not just big organisations, so we don't want people to think it's small companies aren't going to get caught as well. The biggest thing is your data, and that is important to you, and it's probably only really important to you. No one's really after your intellectual property, but if you can't access your files, you can't access your applications, as an organisation, it can bring you or grind you to a halt. So what the ransomware is doing is stopping you from accessing that. So if you can't access it, you can't work and you can't operate. So it is only important to you.
I'd just like to kind of jump on this as well, and we talk about the benefit of why people do this. Someone actually said to me only the other day, they didn't even ask for much money. Now that was quite a sweeping statement. I thought, well, okay, and this was to do with last week in terms of how they were getting money off the hacking environment there. The reality is how many people that had hit. If they're only asking a relatively, and I will say relatively small amount of money off a lot of people, and they get 5% of people who are paying that stacks out to be a good day's work.
I think you've got to remember, once this ransomware exe file is been produced, and there are websites where you can produce your own very simply. They could just email thousands, millions of people, all of our email addresses are quite commonly available on the internet these days. So they're on marketing lists. So they are. It's big numbers they're emailing and or trying to communicate with. So it just takes, like Simon says, a few percent. To click on that, and then they get the payments.
Yeah, I think one thing that we want to kind of get a message across with this particular slide and this webinar is, some of you on this webinar may be business owners. Some of you may have a very high reputation and director level in your business. The important thing is your entire business and the owners, the MDs, etc., are aware of what can happen. Because if they're not aware, that's where the first problem is going to be, essentially. So aware of what can happen. We talk about loss of data here. What is your business going to do if you lose your data? And that is the question that needs to be asked.
Finance, Amy, do you want to give us a bit of explanation over the risks and the consequences on the finance side?
In terms of finance, obviously you have the risk of you pay the ransom and you lose however much, £300, £1,000, however much they charge you for it. The other aspect is something that's coming into force next year. There are fines in place at the moment, but next year something called GDPR is coming into place, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. You might have heard that it's something to do with the EU. Even though it is the EU, Brexit will not impact that at all. The UK were very much involved in getting these laws into place, so we will be doing it. From the 25th of May next year, any business that experiences data breach will be fined up to 4% of their global turnover, or 20 million euros. There's also a massive amount of regulations being put into place in how you hold data, how you hold your client data, what you tell people, the terms of consent. So yes, you could have a £300 ransom if you paid it, but at the same time those people have got hold of all of your data, which is other people's data, and you might have a fine to pay at the same time. For example, TalkTalk, if GDPR had been in place when TalkTalk was hacked last year, they would have had a £70 million fine.
Big numbers. And I suppose the next bit is reputation, and I can't remember the figures off the top of my head, but I'm sure Amy will remember. What was the loss of customers to TalkTalk when they had their...
It was, I want to say about 100,000 or 1 million. It's one of those figures. Either way,
allegedly.
It's like, I can't remember exactly, but definitely.
But the reputation, if you do get caught and your clients are calling you and you can't operate, it doesn't help your reputation at all, does it, to continue to do business? It's just, that's another thing to consider really with the consequences of things. So what to do? Amy, please explain. What do we have to do if we do get caught?
I'm not technical, but I would disconnect from the network straight away, and I would call your IT department, whether that's us, whether that's the team internally. At the end of the day, they're the people that know what they have to do, and I would rather speak to someone that knows what they're doing rather than try and deal with it myself. And then you would need to inform the ICO and the Action Fraud. The ICO is the Information Commissioner's Office, who would be dealing with GDPR next year. From when GDPR comes into place, you would need to inform them of the breach within 72 hours as well.
And just going back about disconnecting from the network, the point here is if we can keep it to one device, it's a lot easier to recover. Because as soon as that starts to affect the whole network, it takes a lot longer to recover and get your systems back and running, up and running.
Yeah. One person's inconvenient. The whole company infrastructure is, well, a little bit more severe than that, I think.
Of course it is. Okay. So backup and disaster recovery. We have produced a guide, 7 Steps to Cybersecurity, which is a little bit more around cybersecurity as a whole, not just ransomware. If you want a copy of that, please email Amy. The details are on the screen. You can then pass that around your staff. A lot of cybercrime, cybersecurity, it's about user education. The biggest flaw in any IT network tends to be the end user education. They're just not looking at the links, they're not reading things, they're not taking their time. So please feel free to email Amy, and she will send you a copy of that, and you can send that round to all your staff. And
I think just jumping on that, I think everyone thinks, oh well, I've got antivirus, I've got anti-spam, I've got a firewall, I must be okay. That's closing a lot of doors, don't get me wrong, and they're absolutely imperative that you've got up-to-date solutions such as that, and that's where those 7 steps of cyber security come into play. But as Steve said, user education is that other piece that's now becoming so paramount, really, to make sure that we all know what can happen and how to try and prevent that.
Yeah. And there are quite a lot of surveys carried out which people seem to have this misbelief that because they're on the work or organisation network that they're safe, they can click on things, but when they're at home they wouldn't do that. It's truly not the case. The users are opening the door for things to hit the network. If they're accepting to install something, the computer can't really argue with them. So user education is absolutely paramount. Backup and disaster recovery. If it does happen, if you do get caught, what we need to do is try and recover you. Ideally, you don't want to be paying ransomware. It puts you on a list. You're more likely to get targeted and attacked again. So having a good viable backup to recover from is paramount, really. So we need to make sure that that's in place. Having a backup that's checked. When was the last time you checked your backup? Who's the person taking their drives off site? Are they taking the drives off site? Are you backing up to the cloud? It's worthwhile doing a check every now and then to make sure that the backup is valid. We are again seeing cases where the ransomware sits dormant on the network for a long time. This could be backed up every week, every time, every day, every hour. So how big's your retention policy? How far can we go back with your backup? It's a very key thing we need to consider, really, with the backup. I'm going over to the next stage. So next steps. Really.
Well, can I just come back to something on there? Recovery time objectives. So when you are looking at a backup, that's a very significant factor. I was speaking to one client, and to be fair, they said if they went down and they got back up in the event of a disaster in a week, it was fine. Now that's very unusual. Other people say, well, 15 minutes is more. So I guess as a business, you need to kind of decide on some policy again. What is an acceptable time in the event of a disaster that I can actually be down on the system? Because then that way the appropriate solution can be put in place.
I think unfortunately the one thing to just with that though is the shorter that time and the quicker you want to recover, unfortunately it does tend to cost you a little bit more money. But obviously if you're a manufacturing plant and you employ lots of people to manufacture something and you stop as an organisation, then you have to pay these sort of figures, unfortunately. Okay. And next steps, really. Do you want to go over this a little bit more for us, Simon?
So basically, there's a playbook available. So we'd like you to download that. So there's a link there. That'll basically take with what we've really spoken about today, but a little bit more detail on that. We wanted to keep today quite light as much as anything. It tells us what it includes, so steps for your IT department, things your staff need to know, how to spot phishing emails, and a DR plan, a disaster recovery plan. It really says there, it's going to take you 10 minutes so if you can spend the time doing that, we'll hope that's worthwhile.
And again, this is something that can be shared around your staff, and just really, again, another bolt on to user education, because we can't emphasise that enough, that making sure your staff are well informed and to prevent anything happening to your network. Okay. So that's it from us today. We're going to hang around for a few minutes for any questions. Please feel free to type them into the box. Again, if you want to have a conversation offline, or you want us to come and have a chat to you, maybe about the network or something like that, please feel free to give us a call. We're in the office today all day, so we're happy to take any calls. If you want us to come and have a look at your network, we're happy to come and do that. If you're a client, you'll be pleased to know that over the weekend when the NHS was struck, we checked our clients that have managed agreements, and they were all up to date, patched, and we didn't have any problems with any of our clients. That was good news for them and for us. So if you're any questions, please fire them over to us.
We've sent one question, which is employees bringing their own devices into the workplace.
Yep.
To what extent is this a threat to network security?
Yeah, well, very much so. You as an organisation should have a policy that ensures that has the correct security on it. First of all, you obviously want to make sure the very basics, really. You want to make sure it has got antivirus and things like that, and it meets your security policy. Can they attach to the network? are they using their own password, using their own password and things like that. So it is a massive threat. We don't advocate bringing in devices to the network unless they meet all the security policies of the normal computers on the network.
We've had a mention that even after paying the ransom, sometimes the decryption has to be manually initiated, therefore paying the ransom isn't a guarantee. We would not advise that you pay the ransom.
That's a really, really strong point, to be fair. There are all sorts of, well, first of all, the people that are doing this are not, you know,
they're not screwed for
16-year-old kids working in the dark room, essentially. These are professional outfits that are doing this, and some of them do it better than others. How you value better than others is an interesting one. Sometimes I have known situations where ransomware has been paid, it's been released, and there hasn't been any initial issues. However, that point there's also been cases where the payment hasn't completely cleared the ransomware.
Yeah. We've actually had cases where the people who created the ransomware attack, the keys didn't actually unlock the ransomware or decrypt the software. So, yeah, it's not the best thing to do to pay it. However, we do know people do have any choice if they haven't got a decent backup or they haven't protected their network. But we'd always recommend, you know, speaking to your IT team to use that as a last resort, really.
We've had another question, which is our online backup safe from ransomware?
Right, okay. Yes and no, really. It's about making sure your network is protected. You know, if it's on the network, you could be backing it up. The case really is to check every time that you have do like a recovery test. Really, we recommend maybe once a year, twice a year to do a DR test. Check that backup. Check there's no files on there that have been that have got ransomware in there. It is quite possible that something can sit on the network and it can be backed up and it can be activated at a later date. So we'd say never say never. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean it's the securest place in the world, but it is quite secure. Any more questions?
There's someone typing in the box at the moment. What we'll do is we'll mute ourselves and we'll wait for any questions to be put in. Oh, we've just had one come in. What are the best methods for removal?
Well, if it's ransomware, the main method really is to recover from a backup. If it's a virus, then there are various tools and things that we can use to recover or remove that virus. But it's making sure you've got a good backup and disaster recovery plan.
There have been issues where it's not been a full recovery job, so it can be, one folder of your network that can get infected, and therefore it can just be recovery of an individual folder or files in that case.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be, the full system, if you want a full system.
We've just had someone say thank you for the webinar. If we could just mute it and we'll see if anyone has any more questions. If not, we'll come back and say goodbye. So we're just muting now.
Thank you.
We're still waiting for any questions. Don't matter how silly you may think they are, please feel free to just type in the chat box.
And just to kind of say, if you want to take it offline, that's also fine
as well. Okay, but I don't think we're going to get any more questions, so we're going to go offline now. I think we'll probably follow up with most of you next week. Maybe just give you a quick call, see if you do have any questions, and we can have a one-to-one chat. In the meantime, though, if there is anything pressing you want to know, please feel free to give us a call. Thank you all very much for taking the time out this morning. Please, as I say, get the playbook, get the cyber security details and pass those around to your staff. All we want to do is try and educate you and your staff not to cause any problems on the network. And be safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.